Hello and welcome to our webinar, Library Love for Library Reads. I'm Susan Maguire, Senior Editor for Collection Management and Library Outreach at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle headings. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Emily Ludloff, Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks, Virginia Stanley, Director of Library Marketing at HarperCollins Publishers, Golda Rademacher, Library Sales and Marketing Director at Norton, Julia Perham, Assistant Marketing Manager at Simon & Schuster, and Rebecca Vnuk, Executive Director at LibraryReads. First, we'll hear from Emily Ludloff. Emily is a Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks. She previously worked as a digital marketer with some of the top names in the music industry in Nashville, Tennessee, but ultimately could not resist the pull of her first love, books. Take it away, Emily.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to be kicking us off today. Thank you so much for Booklist for letting me recommend you some amazing reads that you and your library will love. Next slide. My name is Emily Ludloff, and I am a Library Marketing Associate at Sourcebooks. We would love for you to follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Sourcebooks Library. Most of the titles I will be talking about today are available as e-galleys on NetGalley and Edelweiss. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you have about our new titles, any resources, or virtual author visits. Next slide, please. I wanted to share a small taste of some of Sourcebooks' most recent Library Reads titles, which you voted for and you loved. And I just want to say I'm so thankful. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Next slide, please. So let's get this started with recommended reads with our fiction imprint, Sourcebooks Landmark. Next slide, please. All right, The Mitford Affair by the New York Times bestselling author Marie Benedict follows 6 Mitford sisters as they dominate the English political, literary, and social scenes. Though they've weathered scandals before, this family falls into disarray when Diana divorces her wealthy husband to marry a fascist leader. And Unity follows her sister's lead all the way to Munich, inciting rumors that she's become Hitler's mistress. As the Nazis rise to power, novelist Nancy Mitford grows suspicious of her sister's constant visits to Germany and the high-ranking fascist company they keep. When she overhears alarming conversations and uncovers disquieting documents, Nancy must make excruciating choices as Great Britain goes to war with Germany. Next slide, please. The Last Carolina Girl by Megan Church follows 14-year-old Leah Payne in her beloved Carolina town. When an accident takes her father's life, Leah is wrenched from her small community and cast into a family of strangers with a terrible secret. Separated from her only home, Leah is kept apart from the family and forced to act as a helpmate for the well-to-do household. When a moment of violence and prejudice thrusts Leah into the center of the state's shameful darkness, she must fight for her own future against a world that doesn't always value the spirit of a Carolina girl. Next slide, please. Cersei meets Cersei Lannister in a powerful retelling of Clytemnestra. She is the most notorious heroine and favorite villain of the ancient world, who reigned as an unforgettable and ruthless queen, fiercely dealt out death to the men who wronged her, and she forged a treacherous path to ensure she would never be forgotten. Next slide, please. So thrills and chills don't have to be exclusive to the Halloween season. You can pick up a Poison Pen Press book anytime for fabulous mystery and fabulous thrillers. Next slide, please. In Laws of Depravity by Eric LaSalle, a priest is found murdered in the most gruesome of crime scenes. The brutal slaying is the work of the Martyr Maker, a serial killer that for the past 30 years has left behind a legacy of torture and fear around the United States. NYPD detectives Quincy and Fee, along with FBI agent Janet, know that they have very little time to catch this monster before he completes his final cycle of killing and disappears forever. But the investigation is made even more difficult when they discover that the seemingly unrelated clergymen are anything but the symbols of godliness they would have their community to believe. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to take you a little bit into our own world and our own history with our Sourcebooks nonfiction imprint. Next slide, please. In Windfall, author Erica Bolstead was shocked to learn that she had inherited mineral rights in North Dakota. Determined to unearth the story behind her unexpected inheritance, she followed the trail to her great-grandmother, Anna, who her family had painted to be a courageous homesteader who paved her way into the unforgiving America West. But Bolstead discovers a darker truth about Anna that her family never shared. With journalistic rigor, she unearths a history of environmental exploitation and genocide, as well as the modern-day consequences of the great American Plains dream. We could be rich. Next slide, please. So many of you probably have heard the old sailing superstition that having a woman on board a ship was bad luck. Thus, the sea remains in popular knowledge a male realm. When we think of examples of daring sea captains, swashbuckling pirates, or wise fishermen, many men come to mind. Cultural anthropologist Margaret Wilson would like to introduce a fearless woman into our imagination of the sea, Thurador Einarsdottir. Woman Captain Revel is a daring and magnificent account of Iceland's most famous female sea captain, who constantly fought for women's rights and equality, and who also solved one of the country's most notorious robberies. Next slide, please. Of all the webinars in the internet in all the world, you walked into mine. Let's take a look at romance titles from our Casablanca imprint. Next slide, please. If you're like me, you cannot wait for Katie Roberts' newest installment in her USA Today best-selling Dark Olympus series. Radiant Sin is a sinfully hot retelling of Apollo and Cassandra's mythology. As a disgraced member of a fallen house, Cassandra has seen firsthand what comes from trusting the venomous 13. But when the maddeningly gorgeous and kind Apollo asks her to go undercover as his +1 at a week-long party hosted by a dangerous new power player, Cassandra reluctantly agrees. Apollo is the city's official spy master, but despite what the rest of Olympus says, there's no one he trusts more than Cassandra. Yet, even as their fake relationship takes a wicked turn for the scrumptiously hot, a very real danger surfaces, threatening not only Cassandra and Apollo, but the very heart of Olympus itself. Next slide, please. From the acclaimed author of boyfriend material comes a deeply emotional romance about heartbreak, hope, and learning to love against all odds in Glitterland. Ash Winters was once the golden boy of the English literary scene, but mental illness has dragged him into a cycle of self-destruction. A chance meeting with brassy Essex-born Darian Taylor might be the first step Ash needs to rebuild his life. But Ash has been living in his own shadow for so long that he can no longer see a way out. Can a man who doesn't trust himself ever trust in happiness? And how can someone who doesn't believe in happiness ever fight for his own? Next slide, please. So I know we've all heard it. You should smile more. But in this 9-to-5 retelling for a new age, telemarketer Vanessa Blair is fired because of her resting bitch face. After a night of drinking, her work friends hatch a zany revenge plan to bring down the entire company. At first, Vanessa wants nothing to do with it. She wants to file for unemployment and move on with her life, possibly with Carter Beckett, the cute, cat-loving unemployment rep assigned to her case. But when her self-absorbed ex-boss contests her unemployment and ruins her shot at her dream job, Vanessa, oh, she is all in. Next slide, please. Have you been obsessively watching Our Flag Means Death like I have? Or do you love the drama and the history of Poldark? Then The Secret Lives of Country Gentlemen is for you. Abandoned by his father, Gareth grew up lonely, prickly, and well used to disappointment. When Gareth's father dies, he leaves behind a grand house on the remote Romney Marsh. Joss Doomsday has run the Doomsday smuggling clan in the marsh since he was a boy. When Gareth and Joss cross paths on the marsh, neither can stay away. Soon, all Joss and Gareth want is the chance to be together. But the bleak, bare marsh holds deadly secrets. And when Gareth finds himself threatened from every side, the gentleman and the smuggler must trust one another, not just with their hearts, but with their lives. Next slide, please. A young librarian and an old curmudgeon form the unlikeliest of friendships in the Lonely Hearts Book Club. Sloane Parker never thinks of herself as lonely, but still she looks forward to that time every day when an old curmudgeon, Arthur, comes to browse the shelves and cheerfully insult her. When Arthur doesn't show up one morning, she's instantly concerned. Sloane tracks down the old man, only to discover he's been all but bedridden. Wanting to bring more cheer into Arthur's gloomy life, Sloane creates an impromptu book club. Slowly, the lonely misfits of their sleepy town begin to find each other, and in their book club, find the joy of unlikely friendship. Next slide, please. Modern magic is blended with Thai mythology and wings once cursed and bound. Bennett Andrews represents a secret organization dedicated to locating and acquiring objects of myth and magic, tucking them safely away so they can do no harm. But when he meets Pirafin, it's too late. She's already been trapped in a deadly curse. Yet Pirafin isn't what she seems. Wings unbound, she's a Thai bird princess of legend. And while the curse won't kill her outright, it's only a matter of time. Determined, Bennett sweeps Pirafin deeper into the supernatural world, far beyond everything she's ever imagined, in a desperate bid to find a solution, and an explanation for the powers she doesn't even know how to define. Next slide, please. All right, and now onto our Bloom Books imprint for some sizzle and spice. Next slide, please. Queen of Myth and Monsters is the next book in the vampire fantasy series by USA Today bestselling author Scarlett St. Clair. Isolde, newly coronated queen, has finally found a king worthy of her in the vampire Adrian. But with two opposing goddesses playing mortals and vampires against each other, Isolde is uncertain who her allies are. So Isolde must trust in the bond she's formed with Adrian, even as she learns troubling information about his complicated past. Next slide, please. And because there's so many wonderful romances I'd love to share with you from Bloom, but do not have enough time, you can learn more about these titles in this presentation's Edelweiss catalog. Next slide, please. And thank you all so much for listening, and thank you again to Booklist for putting together this webinar. Please reach out to me at my email if you have any questions, and don't forget to vote for Library Reads. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily. We'll now hear from Virginia Stanley. Virginia is the Director of Library Marketing at HarperCollins Publishers. She and her colleagues host a weekly Facebook Live program called Door to Door, where they interview authors and invite librarians to participate in the conversation. Featured guests have included Ann Patchett, Nikki Giovanni, Russell Banks, Anthony Horowitz, Kate Mulgrew, and many more. Follow Library Love Fest's Facebook page or catch the replay of every episode by going to youtube.com and searching Library Love Fest. Thanks for being here today, Virginia.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Hope so. These are some housekeeping books here, slides, so we can just go straight ahead. Next slide, please. That's how to get in touch with us. And again, go to Library Love Fest to get whitelisted for galleys. Next, please. And more whitelisting and next. Okay, on to the books. Everyone, first of all, I'm going to tell you that I have more books than I have time, but you have an Edelweiss catalog that will fill in the blanks to every book that I don't get to. But I'd love you to know about them, and so there they all are. This book, Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson, is Knives Out and Clue meet Agatha Christie and the Thursday Murder Club. It's a very clever blend of classic and modern murder mystery. It follows a family that's gathered at a remote ski lodge when it's revealed that they have all, in fact, killed someone. You know how that happens. This is great for fans of locked room mysteries, books by Lucy Foley, Ruth Ware, Riley Sager. It winks at classic crime conventions in a way that's sure to appeal to those familiar with this genre. It's great fun, and he's a terrific writer. Next, please. Independence by Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. This novel takes place during the real partition of British India into the Dominion of India and the Dominion of Pakistan. The end of British rule and the split of the land led to a massive refugee situation and mass violence and a tenuous religious rift between Hindus and Muslims that still continues to this day. The author explores this difficult time in India and Pakistan's history with the story of three sisters and their individual journeys. Family is at the core of this historical novel, and readers will cherish this story and its characters. We plan to have her on Door to Door next month, so check it out. Next, please. Laura Zigman, she is one of my favorite writers under our roof. This book, Small World, is about two sisters that are both divorced. A year after her divorce, Joyce is settling into being single again. And when her older sister, Lydia, also divorced, calls to tell her she's moving back east from LA after almost 30 years away, Joyce invites Lydia to move into her Cambridge apartment. They think this is going to turn out to be the post-divorce rebound relationship, but it doesn't work out that way. They rarely discuss the loss of their sister Eleanor, who was significantly disabled and died when she was only 10 years old. And when new revelations from their family's history come to light, will those secrets further split them apart or course correct their connection for the future? I absolutely love this book. It's a fiction, but it's inspired by Laura Zigman's own family history and the loss of her sister when she was a child. We have great news. Laura Zigman's going to be on our Facebook Live program, Door to Door, on Tuesday, October 25th at 2 o'clock. We're offering a free downloadable e-galley. So you all got the link in the for the reminder for today's event. So go there or go to Library Love Fest and we'll click on that. We'll send you a code to read the galley so that you can hopefully join us. The Zoom link is also listed on our Facebook page if you're not on Facebook. Can't wait to talk to her about this book. Next is Pandora by Susan Stokes Chapman. Pandora was an instant #1 Sunday Times bestseller upon publication in the UK in January 2022. It's about a woman, Dora Blake, who lives under the thumb of her suspicious uncle, who is running her late parents' beloved shop of antiquities into the ground. He starts to act very erratically after a mysterious Greek vase is delivered and locked in the basement. Dora enlists the help of Edward Lawrence, a young antiquarian scholar who, unbeknownst to her, sees the vase as an opportunity to unlock his academic future. This is a story of secrets and deception, love and fulfillment, fate and hope. It's steeped in mystery, rich in imagination. It's a great historical novel set in 1799 Georgian London with all its opulence and squalor. It's alive on the page in vivid detail, creating a lush and atmospheric read. In addition to blending Greek mythology with the setting, Pandora offers glimpses into antiquarianism, archaeology, Georgian jewelry, and bookbinding. Next. Hungry Ghosts by Kevin Jared Hossain. This is Trinidad in the 1940s, nearing the end of the American occupation and British colonialism. This follows two households, the Sarups living in a dilapidated, leaky-roofed barrack, and the Changors in the grand whisper-filled manors surrounded by lush acreage. When Mr. Changor suddenly vanishes, Mrs. Changor hires Mr. Sarup to guard the house. And here we see her adoration for him and his for her lifestyle. Both families are subjects of hereditary pain and both clash in a searingly slow but ruinous manner. If you have time, and you should, go to Edelweiss and check out the terrific behind the book piece that the author has written. He said, I wanted to write a book that not only electrified, but was also more than its plot line and its characters, that could be a portal to the Caribbean, and even at such a dark time of Trinidadian history, and for those living in my country to lose themselves in an era many prefer to keep quiet. He's a gifted writer, been compared to Cormac McCarthy, Arundhati Roy. Check out that piece, it's beautiful. Next, please. Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. She's the nationally best-selling author of 1,000 Ships and Pandora's Jar, and this is a fresh, stunning, perceptive take on the story of Medusa. She's a classicist and comedian, and she turns our understanding of the legendary myth of Medusa on its head, bringing empathy and nuance to one of the earliest stories in which a woman injured by a powerful man is blamed, punished, and monstered for the assault. Delving into the origins of this mythic tale, Haynes revitalizes and reconstructs Medusa's story with her passion, fierce wit, and the timely retelling of this classic myth that speaks to us today. She is really funny. She's has a popular BBC radio program called Natalie Haynes Stands Up for the Classics. Highly recommend. Next, please. Vnuk by Cherry Dimmeline. We meet millennial Lucky St. James, and she is going to be evicted from the tiny Toronto apartment she shares with her very cranky but loving grandmother, Stella. Lucky and Stella's prospects seem bleak, but one night in the dark basement of their old building, something strange and irresistible calls out to Lucky. She burrows through a wall to find it, and there, humming with an otherworldly energy, is a tarnished silver souvenir spoon depicting a crooked nose witch and the word Salem. This is a rollicking, dangerous road trip through the United States, darkly magical city of New Orleans, and a final showdown. There is, it's wildly imaginative, compulsively readable fantasia of adventure, history, Americana, feminism, and magic. Vnuk is actually coven, spelled very, very cleverly. So I can't speak enough about this book. Please check it out. Next. The Librarian of Burned Books. This is by the best-selling author of historical fiction and psychological thrillers, Brianna Labuskis. And this is for fans of the Rose Code and the Paris Library. It's about set in World War II novel about 3 women who believe in the power of books to triumph over the very darkest moments of war. It's based on the true story of the Council of Books in Wartime, which was the World War II organization founded by booksellers, publishers, librarians, and authors to use books as weapons in the war of ideas. I'll just read this quote from you. Books are a way we leave a mark on the world, aren't they? They say we were here. We loved and we grieved and we laughed and we made mistakes and we existed. It takes place in Berlin in 1933, Paris in 1936, and New York in 1944. There's so much to unpack in this book. Please read it. It's important. Wonderful novel. Next, please. Now You See Us by Bali Kaur Jaswal. This is the author of 5 novels, including the erotic stories for Punjabi widows, which I loved, and which was a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. We meet 3 women who are Filipina domestic workers, and they are part of the wave of women sent to Singapore to be cleaners, maids, and caregivers. They all have backstories of their own, but they hear this story about Flordeliza Martinez. She also is a Filipina maid, and she's arrested for murdering her female employer. These 3 women don't know this woman well, but she could be any one of them because every worker knows stories of women who were scapegoated or even executed for crimes they didn't commit. So they use their incredible moxie and insight to piece together the mystery of what really happened on the day this woman's employer was murdered. It's about identity, social justice, women's rights, elitism in one of the wealthiest and most celebrated cities in the world. Next, please. 2 minutes left, and I'm doing pretty good, but I won't get to all of them, so please do check out the catalog. The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. Shannon Chakraborty, she is the author of the critically acclaimed Davidabad I don't know if I said that right, trilogy. That's The City of Brass, and her work's been translated into over a dozen languages. And here we meet one of the Indian Ocean's most notorious pirates, Amina al-Sarafi. She survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon to retire peacefully with her family to a life of piety, motherhood, and absolutely nothing that hints of the supernatural until she's tracked down by this obscenely wealthy mother of a former crewman. She's offered a job no bandit could refuse. Retrieve her comrade's kidnapped daughter for a kingly sum. Look, this is great fun. Dave Abad, I got it right. This is a new trilogy set in the same universe, and she's just a compelling character. And this is a big book talk author, and you're going to be hearing a lot about this book. And next, please. Our Best Intentions by Vibhuti Jain. This is a debut novel, contemporary upmarket in the vein of Everything I Never Told You, about an Indian father and daughter living in an affluent suburb of Westchester. One day, Angie, the daughter, finds a white classmate stabbed and bleeding on the football field. Police immediately focus their attention on a runaway Black girl who disappears after the stabbing. The town is fractured, individual lives spiral as the school community confronts this act of violence, and it brings issues of racial bias and entitlement to the surface. It's everything that you think it would be, exploring hot button issues like racial injustice and the toxicity of wealth, privilege, and entitlement. It's perfect for book clubs. Next, please. Connie Briscoe, You Never Know. She was alongside authors like Terry McMillan and Elin Harris. She was the forefront of massive commercial bestsellers about Black women. And this is a twisty, tension-filled thriller in which a hearing-impaired woman must battle her rising terror as she fights for her life. What a great writer she is. I'm out of time, but I thank you for yours. And please join us. Please join us and check out all the titles in the Edelweiss catalog and our interview with Laura Zigman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Virginia. We'll now hear from Golda Redemaker. Golda started as a sales assistant at Norton 22 years ago. She is now the library sales and marketing director, which seems appropriate since both of her parents were librarians. She recently moved back to Michigan and is looking forward to visiting local libraries in her area. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at WWNortonLibrary. Take it away, Golda.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Susan. Thank you all for joining us today. Here's my contact information, and you can find links to our catalogs and our newsletters through that library marketing URL on the slide. We are thrilled to have 7 titles from Norton and our client publishers on the long list for the National Book Awards, and just announced this morning, we have 3 finalists on the short list, and then the winners will be announced in November. So next up, we have a lot of great titles coming out this fall. I've talked about some of these on previous Booklist webinars and Alma Book Buzzes, so I'm only going to touch on a couple fall titles before I switch over to the winter season. This next book was just announced. The 7 Moons of Molly Almeida is on the shortlist for the Booker Prize, and we will publish it in the US in November. This is a satire set amid the mayhem of the Sri Lankan Civil War in 1990. The main character is a photojournalist who has died and is in limbo. He has 7 days to figure out how to lead his loved ones to a set of photos that will rock Sri Lanka. And these photos are probably what got him killed. The 2022 Booker Prize judges describe the novel as an afterlife noir with nods to Dante and Buddha, and yet unpretentious, fizzes with energy, imagery, and ideas against a broad, surreal vision of the Sri Lankan civil wars. This November will be the 100th anniversary of the publication of The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. We're publishing a facsimile edition that includes pages that were edited out of the original publication. We also have The Hyacinth Girl by Lyndall Gordon, which is a biography of Eliot and the women he loved. And coming in December, we have The Wasteland, a biography of a poem by Matthew Hollis, which reconstructs the intellectual creation of the poem, explores the legacy of the work, and brings the charged time of its writing vividly to life. And now moving on to our winter titles. This Other Eden is the new novel by Pulitzer Prize winner Paul Harding. This is historical fiction that tackles the legacy of post-Civil War Black communities, eugenics, and eviction on one exceptional island. In the book, the island is called Apple Island, but the story was inspired by Malaga Island off the coast of Maine. Harding will be a speaker at the Library Journal Day of Dialogue on October 20th, so I hope you will sign up for that. After Sappho by Selby Wynne Schwartz was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and we're publishing it here in January. This debut novel reimagines the intertwined lives of feminists at the turn of the 20th century. Schwartz writes an invigorating tale of women whose narratives converge and splinter as they forge queer identities and claim the right to their own lives. The book tackles themes of creativity, education, and identity. The writing is experimental but accessible, and it should appeal to people who like to read historical fiction, sapphic fiction, and those who like to learn about real people, both famous and lesser known, who pushed against the conventions of their time. Margot by Wendell Stevenson is also a story of a young woman pushing against the conventions of her time. Margot is trying to get away from the predictable path that her mother wants her to follow, i.e., skip college and marry a wealthy man. Instead, a devastating fire allows her to get away and make her own path at Radcliffe College. Stevenson captures the last vestiges of the world of Park Avenue penthouses, Long Island estates, and establishment snobbery as they come crashing against social change in the 1960s. Ghost Season by Fatin Abbas is a debut novel set in Sudan. 5 characters meet during their involvement with an NGO on the border between northern and southern Sudan. South Sudanese translator William connects a recently discovered corpse to the sudden disappearance of cook Layla, a northern nomad with whom he's fallen in love. Meanwhile, Sudanese American filmmaker Dina struggles to connect to her unfamiliar homeland, and white Midwestern aid worker Alex finds his plans thwarted by a changing climate and looming civil war. Dancing between the adults is Mustafa, a clever, endearing 12-year-old whose schemes to rise out of poverty set off cataclysmic events on the compound. Amidst the paradoxes of identity, art, humanitarian aid, and a territory riven by conflict, these unforgettable characters forge bonds stronger than blood, ethnicity, and nation. The Dream Builders is coming from Tin House Books. Written from the perspectives of 10 different characters, Mukherjee's incisive debut novel explores class divisions, gender roles, and stories of survival within a society that is constantly changing. Her story of one town in India is full of ambition, longing, love, and bitter loss that asks what it really costs to try to build a dream. Murder Book is the new standalone novel from Thomas Perry, coming from Mysterious Press. Perry is the author of the Jane Whitefield series, and his book, The Old Man, was the basis for the Hulu show starring Jeff Bridges. Murder Book is signature Thomas Perry with crisply described action sequences, a tense plot that will keep you racing through the pages, and characters you won't soon forget. And also from Mysterious Press, we have a biography of Mickey Spillane, the best-selling pulp mystery writer of the Mike Hammer series. Beginning in 1947 with I, the Jury, and continuing with his next 6 novels, Spillane quickly amassed a readership in the tens of millions. Spillane was loathed by critics, but beloved by his readers because of the overt violence and suggestive sexual content of his iconic Private Eye novels. He also starred as Mike Hammer in a movie, was a circus performer, worked with the FBI to capture a notorious criminal, and starred in Miller Lite beer commercials that were so popular they ran for a quarter of a century. This is a must-read for fans of mysteries and biography and publishing history. For your fans of Super Pumped, The Barbarians at the Gate, or Bad Blood, we have For Blood and Money. Nathan Vardy tells the little-known story of how an upstart biotechnology company created a 1 in a million cancer drug, and how the core team, when denied their share of the profits, left and did it again. In this epic saga of money and science, where vivid characters navigate a world of corporate intrigue and ambiguous morality, veteran financial journalist Vardy explains how the invention of two of the biggest cancer drugs in history became two of the greatest Wall Street bets of all time. The Wise Hours is for your fans of Helen MacDonald, Robert Macfarlane, or Cy Montgomery. Miriam Darlington watches and listens to the natural world and to the rhythms of her home and family, inviting readers to discover the wonders of owls alongside her, while rewilding our imagination with the mystery, fragility, and magnificence of all creatures. She travels through Europe to find various species of owls, but many of these owls are also in the US in case you get inspired to do your own owl spotting. Last on His Feet is a graphic novel biography of the boxer Jack Johnson. Offering front row seats to the historic showdown between Johnson and Jim Jeffries, artist Yusuf Daoudi and poet Adrian Mateka mix dramatic boxing action with vivid flashbacks to reveal how Johnson, the self-educated son of emancipated slaves, reached the pinnacle of sports, all while facing down a racist justice system. Thirst for Salt is a debut novel about a passionate love affair for readers who like books by Sally Rooney, Andre Osman, Lauren Akampora, or Sophie McIntosh. A young woman is on holiday with her mother in an isolated Australian coastal town. Finding herself enthralled by the much older Jude, she begins losing herself in the simple, seductive rhythms of his everyday life. But when she witnesses something she doesn't fully understand, she finds herself questioning everything about Jude, about herself, about the life she has, and the life she wants. In the real work, best-selling author and New Yorker writer Adam Gopnik embarks on a wildly creative inquiry into the question, how do we learn a new skill? Gopnik apprentices himself to an artist, a dancer, a boxer, and even a driving instructor, trying his hand at things he assumed were beyond him. He finds that mastering a skill is a process of methodically breaking down the steps and building back up piece by piece. Exuberant and profound, the real work is ultimately about why we relentlessly seek to better ourselves in the first place. And Joe Milan Jr. will also be at Library Journal's Day of Dialogue to introduce his debut novel, The All-American. In rural Washington state, Bucky, a Korean-American high school senior, trains hard to pursue his only ambition to play college football. But when the US government deports him to South Korea, he finds himself alone in a country where he can't speak the language, is conscripted to the army, and is obligated to pay off the debts of his long-missing biological father. With a likable and memorable narrative voice, Bucky battles a morass of bureaucracy and betrayal in order to find his way home. Along the way, he must face down essential questions about who he is to others and the type of man he wants to become. So, of course, there are a lot more great titles coming out next year, and I don't have enough time to talk about them, but I hope you'll look at our full catalog on Edelweiss. And thank you again for listening. We have many digital arcs on Edelweiss and NetGalley, and we'll keep posting more of the winter titles as they become available. I also do print ARC giveaways in the library newsletter, which you can subscribe to by following that library marketing link on the slide. And thank you again, and please reach out if you have any questions. Bye for now.
Thank you so much, Golda. Next, we'll hear from Julia Perham. Julia is the assistant editor at Vnuk Press, where she works with the editorial and production teams and finds new creators for Vnuk's list. Her particular editorial interests are in themes of immigration, complex relationships, and resilience, focusing on stories that empower readers and validate their experiences. The floor is yours, Julia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Perham. Thank you so much for being here today. I am having such a good time learning about all of these great books that I've already written down a ton to request the second I can at the library. So I have some new releases and some forthcoming titles to share with you. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to talk about some standout fall titles that you probably couldn't have missed if you tried. Just recently, we celebrated the book birthday of Friedrich Bachmann's final installment of the Beartown trilogy, which is The Winners, following a close-knit, resilient community in a hockey-obsessed town deep in the forest of Sweden as they grapple with change, pain, hope, and redemption. Later this month, we'll see It Starts With Us, which is the long anticipated sequel of Colleen Hoover's It Starts With Us, switching between the perspectives of Lily and Atlas. This one picks up right where the epilogue had left off, revealing more about Atlas's past and following Lily as she embraces a second chance at true love, while navigating a jealous ex-husband. Coho fans will not be disappointed. Also on that same day, we'll be seeing John Irving's first novel in 7 years, The Last Chairlift, which is a ghost story, a love story, and it sweeps across a lifetime of sexual politics, reflecting the tensions in our own cultural and political landscape. He's declared it to be his last long novel, and it is incredibly long, and it's also available to request for a digital review copy, so I'll leave you with that. Next, please. Now, looking towards January, we have a new title a new novel from the author of The German Girl. The Night Travelers is a multi-generational story set in 1930s Germany, pre- and post-revolutionary Cuba, and the present day, recounting the true stories of Black and mixed race families united by the sacrifice they had to make in accordance with Hitler's racial laws. Exploring racial identity, guilt, and innocence of those who were complicit in unspeakable acts of violence, and the weight of those actions on their descendants, this moving historical saga is truly a book club's dream, and you won't want to miss that conversation. So send in those requests for the review copies and be ready to submit your Library Reads vote by December 1st. Next, please. Here we have a stunning character-driven debut by Tom Crew. In the new life, you'll meet two authors who are risking their reputation, livelihood, and their very lives to publish a revolutionary book in defense of homosexuality, which at the time of the book in 1894 is a crime. Shortly before the book is to be published, Oscar Wilde is arrested, and authors John and Henry must decide whether to go on, risking social ostracism and imprisonment, or to give up the project for their own safety and the safety of those that they love. They must ask a pretty timely question, is publishing bravery or foolishness? Tom Crew brings an unforgettable portrait of two men, a city, and a generation discovering the nature and limits of personal freedom. You could look for that one this January. Next, please. From the Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who broke the story in 1999, The Exceptions is an intimate and inspiring account of the 16 female scientists who forced MIT to publicly admit they had been discriminating against its female faculty for years, sparking a nationwide reckoning with the pervasive sexism in science. We're offered a rare glimpse into the world of high-level scientific research and learn about the extraordinary female scientists whose work had been overlooked throughout history, and how these women courageously fought for fair treatment and the recognition they rightfully deserve. Whether intentional or not, this release is perfectly timed to align with the International Day of Women and Girls in Science this February. Next, please. Here we have more stories inspired by real-life resiliency. This is a masterful debut novel about 3 lives bound together by a long-lost letter, a mother's love, and a secret network of women fighting for the right to choose. In the 3 timelines, you'll follow along these 3 daring women whose choices lead them to an underground abortion network known only by its whispered codename Jane. This is an ode to the doctors, nurses, and volunteers who fought for the rights of future generations to have a say over their bodies. Next, please. Now, for readers of a different kind of horror, we have A History of Fear. This is an eerie, propulsive literary suspense debut following the dizzying downfall of a tortured graduate student who's been nicknamed the Devil's Advocate for his sensational crime, murdering a classmate and then claiming that the devil made him do it. A History of Fear is a foray into the darkness of the human psyche, marrying dread-inducing atmosphere and truly heart-palpitating storytelling. As they say, don't read this one in the dark, and the same can be said for our next title, whose author has earned the nickname the Jordan Peele of horror literature. Next, please. Yes, and that is Stephen Graham Jones, who's bringing us Don't Fear the Reaper, the page-turning sequel to My Heart is a Chainsaw. 4 years after their tumultuous senior year, Jade Daniels is released from prison right before Christmas when her conviction is overturned. But life beyond bars takes a dangerous turn as she returns to Proof Rock, Idaho, and convicted serial killer Dark Mill South is seeking revenge for 38 Dakota men hanged in 1862 and escapes from his prison transfer due to a blizzard just outside of Proof Rock, of course, on what he calls his reunion tour. 36 hours and 20 bodies later, an homage to slasher films that also manages to defy and transcend genre. Next, please. Here we have a sophomore title by Stephen Markley, who's been crafting this one, The Deluge, for 10 years, and it charts a near future approaching collapse, but strengthening in solidarity. The world is convulsing, its governments in gridlock, while a patient but unrelenting ecological crisis looms. America is in upheaval, battered by violent weather and extreme politics. In California, a scientist studying the deposits of undersea methane receives a death threat. His fate will become bound to a stunning cast of characters, including a brazen young activist who, in the mountains of Wyoming, begins a project that will alter the course of the decades to come. From the Gulf Coast to Los Angeles, the Midwest to Washington, D.C., their intertwined odysseys unfold against a stark backdrop of accelerating chaos as they summon courage, galvanize a nation, fall to their own fear, and find wild hope in the face of staggering odds. As their stories hurtle towards a spectacular climax, each faces a reckoning. What will they sacrifice to salvage humanity's last chance at a future? Next, please. Okay, taking a break from the last few heavy titles, sort of, we have a darkly comic mystery set in the vibrant music scene of the early 1990s New York City. Dive bars, DIY music venues, shady weirdos, and hard drugs are plentiful. Crime is high, but the rent is low, luring hopeful, creative kids from sleepy suburbs. We follow a young rock musician named Jack, starting with a few days before his band is supposed to play their biggest gig, when their lead singer goes missing with Jack's prized bass, presumably to sell it to support his heroin habit. During Jack's search, he sees that his bandmate's disappearance might be much more sinister, tied to local real estate developers who are looking to remake New York City, and also might have something to do with the recent death of Jack's musical mentor. Along the way, he encounters a cast of colorful characters in this page-turning suspense, serving as a love letter to a bygone era of a New York City where young artists could still afford to chase their dreams. Next, please. I'll leave you with 3 romantic comedies. The first, from the author of The Charm Offensive, comes Kiss Her Once for Me, a festive romantic comedy about a woman who fakes an engagement, one of my favorite tropes, with her landlord, only to fall for his sister. Another feel-good comfort read is The Key to My Heart, out in December. This one is a heartwarming novel about hope after loss, as a young widow playwright is mysteriously left with sheet music for her husband's favorite songs at the only piano that she could still bring herself to play, which is at a public or a London train station. Natalie begins to feel a sense of hope and excitement for the first time. And as she investigates just who could be doing this, leaving her the notes and the sheet music, she finds herself on an unexpected journey towards a newfound love for herself, for life, and maybe for a special someone. Lastly, The Reunion is perfect for fans of Emily Henry and Christina Lauren, and those who could not get enough of Corey and Topanga. When 2 former teen stars reconnect at their 20th reunion for their hit TV show, they realize their long discovered feelings for each other are very real and very mutual, and not just what was scripted out for them all of those years ago. It's a heartfelt, poignant look at the ups and downs of life in the spotlight. Next, please. With that, thank you so much. You can visit our updated librarian hub for recommended reading, discussion guides, and much more. You can find that simonandschuster.net/library, including information on our spring preview with guest Jeanette Walls. And next, here's my email if you'd like to reach out. I would love to hear from you, julia.parham@simonandschuster.com. Thank you all so much and take care.
Thank you so much, Julia. Next, we'll hear from Rebecca Vnuk. Rebecca is the Executive Director of LibraryReads, a nonprofit organization that works with public library staff and U.S. publishers to promote adult reading. She has an MLIS from Dominican University and worked as a Reader's Advisory librarian for a decade. And prior to joining LibraryReads, she was the editor for collection management and library outreach at Booklist magazine. Rebecca is the author of 3 reference books on the topic of women's fiction, as well as a best-selling book on weeding library collections. Take it away, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Susan, and thank you all for having me. You know how much we love our friends at Booklist. So I am just here to spend a short amount of time telling you all about LibraryReads and going through some quick details on how you can get involved. As Susan mentioned, we are a registered 501c6 nonprofit organization, and our mission is to connect adults with books that library staff across the country are recommending every month. We also do free training and events for library staff centered on Reader's Advisory for adult patrons. So getting to know us, our main product, if you will, is our top 10 list. We have the wonderful job of putting together all of the votes that you as library staff members are giving us through Edelweiss and NetGalley. There are no juries here. It is not an award committee. The board does not choose these picks. What I love so much about it is that LibraryReads is open to anyone who works in a public library, any job level, any position, MLS or not, any area of the library. If you work in a library, you're one of us. So next slide, I'll show you a quick little infographic. We have a larger version of this on our website of how the list gets created. So basically, as you know from today, publishers make their advanced reader copies available to you. You can get those in print, you can get them on Edelweiss and or NetGalley, and both of those services are free to register and use. Once you read those books, you vote on them. It's also referred to as nominate, so don't be confused by that. Votes are due 1 month before the book's publication date, and I'll talk about that in a little minute. And then we start to tally them after the first of the month. So for example, today is the 4th, and we are busy this morning, counting up thousands of votes from NetGalley and Edelweiss, sorting them all by month, sorting them all by who voted, getting them all ready to release our top 10 list for the month. And then that list is put together in a printable poster that releases on the 15th. I will let you all know for this particular month, the 15th is on a Saturday, so we're actually releasing on Monday the 17th. But don't worry, we will put that all over our social media so you don't forget. And then that list will be ready for you to download, print, and share with your readers. So the #1 pick, there's a nice example of one of our month lists. The #1 pick gets a top pick badge on the website, and that list is ready in printable format that you can use for display purposes or to hand out to your patrons. You do the voting, we do the counting, and there we have it. In 2018, we created the Hall of Fame, which includes favorite authors that appear regularly on the list. So when an author's 3rd title hits the list, they make it into our Hall of Fame. This recognizes popular authors while opening up space on the monthly list for a broad selection of new authors. If you head to our website, which is libraryreads.org, and select the Participate tab, that will take you to several options on how to learn more about our process. So we've got links on there on how to sign up for Edelweiss and NetGalley, screenshots on what the book records look like, what you can expect, how to make sure you're placing your vote properly. That could be a whole little webinar in itself, so you don't need that from me right now. Go to the website, it's there, and we also have videos. There are videos on our YouTube channel, which will walk you through using NetGalley and Edelweiss, as well as a video tutorial on how to write annotations for a chance to have your annotation featured on one of our lists. So our YouTube channel is linked on our website, and also it's youtube.com/libraryreads. Couldn't be easier. So I was at the ARSL conference last month, and I had a fantastic time meeting folks who already used us, meeting tons of folks who were not familiar with us. And it occurred to me, the people who didn't know about us had 3 of the same questions over and over again. So I wanted to put those up here really briefly. The first one was, do I need to sign up and register with LibraryReads? Closely followed with, do I have to pay for LibraryReads? So absolutely not. If you work in a library, we consider you one of our members, basically. And there is never a charge to do anything with LibraryReads. What you do have to sign up for, though, is an account at Edelweiss or at NetGalley, and make sure that you are identifying yourself as a public library staff member in order to get those free digital downloads and to place your votes. Again, if you visit our website under that participate tab, you'll have everything you need to get started. The second question I got a lot of is, so does LibraryReads send out these books? Nope, I wish we did. That would be kind of fun. But as you know from listening to our fine friends today, you access these books through NetGalley and Edelweiss and through getting books at conferences. And we have everybody's contact information on our resources page. The other thing that is interesting is if your library wants all 10 of those books every month and our Hall of Fame and our bonus pick, our dear friends at Ingram and Baker and Taylor create ready-made carts for those. So they can send you the books, but we can't. And then again, as I already mentioned this, does it cost anything to participate? Absolutely not. We are a not-for-profit organization. We survive thanks to the generous support of our publisher friends. And so those are the big questions. So why should you participate in LibraryReads? Got your reasons right there. The main one I like to really say is it enhances your reader's advisory skills, right? These are 10 books every month that maybe you were familiar with, or maybe you had the chance to read yourself, but maybe you didn't. And because of what I like to think of as very superior annotations from our library users, you can read those and kind of know right away, okay, I've got someone to recommend that to. If I haven't read this one yet, at least I know what it's about. At least I've got some read-alikes ready to go. You can also use LibraryReads in your library. So this is a picture, actually, a friend of mine sent this to me from her public library. I did not solicit this. I did not know that her library did this display, and look at how great that looks. So you can use our lists for collection development. You can use them as displays. You can use them as reader's advisory, and please use our social media. So some important voting reminders I'll go through really quick. We do have a full frequently asked questions section on our website, as well as the for library staff under that participate tab. But the main things to remember are your votes are due the first of the month before the book's pub date. So right now we are voting for December 2022 and beyond. You can vote early. So I know a lot of the stuff we looked at today is coming out January, February, some in March. That is great. If you're reading it now, go ahead and place that vote. There is no limit to the number of titles you can vote for every month. The one limit we do have is that the titles must be published for adult readers. All genres and subject categories are welcome, both fiction and nonfiction. We welcome votes for any book by any publisher, as long as you can find the record listed in Edelweiss or NetGalley. And again, go to our website to look at the for library staff and for the FAQ, and you'll find all the answers to your questions there. So how do you get advanced reader copies? That's another big question that I'm always asked. Of course, today's webinars like this, right? We love these webinars. You get to see our publisher friends. They tell you all about what's coming up. They tell you what to request. Get on their email lists. I cannot stress that enough. They will hand pick what they are most excited about and send those blurbs right to you. And most of the time, you just click right on through and it opens it up in NetGalley or Edelweiss for you. It could not get any easier. Now that we're seeing in-person events happen again, visit those publisher booths at ALA, PLA, ARSOL, etc. We actually are heading to a lot of state shows, and if you have a local or regional show that's coming up that you think LibraryReads would be great to sponsor, please reach out and let me know, because we would love to know that. A couple other tips on there. Early Word. So Early Word has a full list of the publisher marketing folks, and also they host monthly galley chats on Twitter, which are a great place to learn about upcoming titles. And you can find that earlyword.com/galley chat will tell you all about how to participate. That happens the first Thursday of every month from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock Eastern Time. So really quick, I just wanted to share our social media handles with you. We are just regular old /LibraryReads on Facebook and Instagram. We are LibraryReads99 on Twitter. On the 15th, that is when we post individual posts for every book on the list. So make sure you're checking us out all month long, but particularly on the 15th. And then with my last final minute, I just want to talk super quick about our Library Reads annotations. So we can actually skip over here because that's just an example. Here are some tips for that. We're super, super proud of the fact that these are all written by library folks. They are not written by the board. They are edited. So don't worry if you think you're not going to be able to do that good of a writing job. We will help you with that. But give us some short annotations. We're looking for 3 to 4 sentences, definitely reader's advisory style. Again, I mentioned we have a video on our website on how to write our annotations. So we can go along to the next one here. Here is a great, oops, there was a really quick one. You see, we're looking for a brief description of plot, type of story and appeal, and read-alike suggestions. Boom, easy peasy. All right, so lastly, what else do we offer? Because we do offer more than just the list. Please head to our website. Because we have funding available. And I know everybody's looking for money, right? We have funding available for individual staff members to attend readers advisory and collection development based conferences, programs, and events. We have funding available for libraries and institutions to pay for readers advisory or collection development based staff programming. That could be hiring consultants, that could be sending staff to bulk webinars, etc. Look at our website, libraryreads.org/CE support. And always email me with any questions. You can email me. We are offering readers advisory trainings right now via Zoom or in person if travel allows. So last slide, you'll see my email is right there. It's really easy, Rebecca@libraryreads.org. I love hearing from our users. I love hearing from people who are new to us. So if you've got any questions at all about anything Library Reads, please shoot me a line and I promise I'll get right back to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And a big thank you to all of today's wonderful presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Now you can share Booklist love with everyone connected to your school district, library system, or higher learning institution. Booklist Online Unlimited offers just that. Unlimited simultaneous access to 30 years worth of reviews and article archives, plus digital editions of Booklist, Booklinks, Booklist Guide to Graphic Novels in Libraries, and Booklist Reader. For pricing and other questions, visit booklistonline.com/subscribe. Good news, you can now deliver Booklist's unparalleled recommendations directly to patrons. Share Booklist Reader digitally and now in print. Learn more at bit.ly/booklistreaderprint or check out our website for more information about ordering your copies now. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsors, Sourcebooks, HarperCollins Publishers, Norton Company, Simon & Schuster, and Library Reads. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.